So, hi again. I hope you're all having a really nice afternoon, evening. My presentation is a little bit gloomy, doomy, however you want to call it. Sorry for that. There's also a bit of hope in there. So, my name is Eleftherios. I'm originally from Greece, but I'm based in Berlin here since 2011. I am the founder of Radicle, and then also for the last 3 years, I've been also contributing to a project called Drips. I'm going to talk about these things, but today the title of my talk is Weird Times Ahead, Blockchains, Geopolitics, and the State of the Sovereign Stack. So I thought that it would be important to have a presentation that talks about what's happening in the world and a little bit more specifically what's happening here in Europe. Because honestly, the last few weeks I haven't been feeling so great. So I believe that, like many other Europeans, can you hear me?
Yes. I just wanted to ask, what's your nationality background to have more of a clue where you come from?
I'm originally from Greece. I grew up in Athens, and then I moved basically to Berlin in 2011, and then I'm based here since. Thank you for asking. So back to this. I haven't been feeling so great recently, and I believe that you all understand that there are many, many reasons for that. I think that an entire generation of Europeans and generally people around the world, I would say, but I'm going to focus more in Europe, is waking up to a reality that is really unsettling, right? It fundamentally feels that something has changed, and there are many things, but I try to put the pieces together and at least structure my thoughts about what's happening. And it really feels that, things that we used to take for granted are being challenged right now. And, you heard these words previously in your lives, right? But I think that at least here something feels very, very different this time. If you, think about your social feeds, the news, whatever is going on, these are the things that surround my world at the moment. Nationalism, remilitarization, a really hot topic here in Germany, inequality, oligarchy, right? So these are things that are thrown around, and I have started to put the pieces together, and especially these two first words together just scare the hell out of me. I really think that we are in uncharted territories, or maybe really old territories here in Europe. So I've been really, reflecting on those things, both as an individual, but also as a technology that is building stuff. And, when I'm thinking about the digital landscape, I have started already observing that many of those things now, of course, you can observe them really clearly in our technologies, right? So you can clearly at the moment notice that there's this trend towards what I call digital nationalization, right? This idea of the open internet and all of that. Well, now, the talks for a while have been about the Western internet, the Chinese internet. If you've been following proposals within the EU, there were already talks about the European internet, more closed stuff, more, walled gardens. This is being talked, and I think it's being normalized in our brains at the moment, within defense, protecting ourselves, sovereignty, national sovereignty, and things like that, right? So that's clearly, here. The other thing that I think is clearly here is this tendency towards authoritarianism. I think we start to see many more actions, both in physical space, but also on digital space, where some authority is really going above and beyond what they used to do. And also we do not see a lot of pushback anymore. Right? It seems that we're starting to accept a lot of things that previously weren't really accepted. And then finally, there's this whole topic that a bunch of people call digital feudalism. The simplest way to think about this is an older trend. Big tech is, absorbing a big chunk of our lives. Well, guess what? Now you have AI as well, which is the other key word that probably I should add here. That is, my social feed is full of that. Right? So all of this is very, very gloomy for me. And it feels particularly weird, and especially for people that have been in this space for maybe the last decade. And I know that there are a few people in the room that have seen in Berlin these circles for a while, because we saw it coming, right? This isn't new stuff. This space used to talk about those things, and they used to talk specifically especially for the ones of you that have been around, like, Ethereum, the early days, it was all about, like the world computer, an alternative to, the big tech. It was a lot, about user sovereignty around identity, around data, right? And the roots that we were already seeing, 10 years ago was increased surveillance in tech for control, right? We're thinking about the normalization of data collection. We're thinking about the monopolization of the internet, effectively like an oligopoly of 4 or 5 different players dominating everything we do. And then, of course, already back then we had signs of the fragmentation of the internet, right? So anyone that was, like looking ahead, and this space used to look ahead, I believe, in these things, we're seeing those signs, but it feels really weird because now we're in it. We like suddenly walk in this, and it's even more peculiar. And I don't know if I'm being recorded. I think I am being recorded, so I guess I'm going to be more polite. But it feels even more peculiar because this space, there are a lot of people that did make significant amounts of money with Bitcoin and with Ethereum and with many of those technologies, predicting this, right? But now many of these people are in this situation, and it feels really weird. And the thing that is even weirder is that this space used to care about those things, but I don't know if you're noticing now there's silence around us. There aren't that many, like, the world is burning, but crypto networks, are they a thing? Are they a solution? Are they relevant? Are they something different now, right? It doesn't feel that this space has a lot to say and to offer at the moment, and I think this is particularly problematic and disappointing for some of us that have been working in technology in this space. It seems that something went wrong here. So the promise was this, right? And I try to simplify the world. There are many nuances and there are many alternative promises, but at the core of it, it was always about user-controlled identity, it was about user-controlled data, it was about open access to all, not differentiating where you're coming from to access a service, a product, and then there was a big component of privacy, among many, many other things. And we did accomplish a bunch of stuff, I think, the last decade, and I don't want to be, completely, doomy. I think that, what we got, while I was reflecting, I was like, what did the space do well? Okay, there is a decentralized financial infrastructure. DeFi is a thing. Having said that, the big question is that, is this a thing for all, or is this a thing for a few, right? And before, we had the conversation about scalability on Ethereum. Ethereum effectively has been decentralized infrastructure for wealthy or for traders or for people that were willing to put money on the line, but they weren't because of the very expensive gas fees in order to transact for the many, right? And hopefully this is changing. I know that, for instance, like the Gnosis team has been doing great things along those lines. There's a lot going on here, and that's why I added this into the wins category. But yeah, a decentralized financial infrastructure, yes, this is here, and this is one of the wins. I think the biggest thing that I can say that, okay, I'm proud, I contributed to a bunch of that stuff, is advancements in cryptography and distributed systems. This space indeed produced a lot of research that I think is being applied right now. The example that everyone is using is the acceleration with ZK stuff. Really, this is something that everyone was saying, it's 20 years out. Many of these things are happening, and this is primarily a result of the money that have been, piped in that area from cryptocurrency-related projects. There's also been, funding of sovereign technologies and public goods. I continue to think that this is a distinct area within the cryptocurrency space. And then, of course, lots of coordination experiments around governance, around incentives, right? We will see. Time will tell if this led to something, right? Because right now I'm not sure that we're seeing the benefits in governance. If this whole thing hasn't happened, would the world be worse? I'm not sure. So some wins, but what about tools for everyday sovereignty, right? Now that we need them, and what about non-financial applications? Where are those? Do we have anything to say there? Thinking about that stuff and starting to move a little bit more into the positive aspect of this presentation, I started doing some research with some friendly AIs about privacy technology and where do they stand with regards to impact. And I took a very simplistic take, which is basically I took technologies that there is some evidence that they have at least 50,000 monthly active users, right? So I basically tried to find, success stories, and this is kind of where I landed. So there's a lot of stuff, right? And I'm just gonna call out a few things. Obviously, Signal is also in the media these days for other reasons, but Signal is, a proven solution at this point, making the lives of millions of people better, including government officials. So IPFS is a thing, with its limitations, but it's actually a thing that's being widely used as decentralized storage. Brave, I think they announced at some point that they have 100 million users. So they clearly, have been bringing privacy to mainstream. Tor, of course, massive impact, especially for people in need. Proton Mail, I think they're also having significant traction now. And then, we're going down into on purpose, I put the rest a little bit lower because some of them have questions next to them, but DuckDuckGo has been providing a private search engine for a while that has traction, Matrix Element on the messaging front, CryptPad, and then on the OS we have Graphene OS, right? I don't know if they have 50,000 users, that one, but I'm very excited about it. Tails OS, and then you have Jitsi for videos, and then you have the two social networks that have their own questions. Mastodon is a federation, right? And it's not really user-owned identity, neither data, so that's why I was like, should I add it? But it has traction. I think it's an advancement versus, what came before it. And of course, Blue Sky at the moment, I think they announced that they have 35 million users or something. 32 was the last number I saw, so they're clearly growing quite fast. Again, questions with regards to identity at the moment, but hopefully, they will get there. So there is a freedom stack, there is a sovereign stack that is emerging, and I think we should all feel really, really great for that. At the same time, notice, how many of these projects have any association with cryptocurrency? Brave, right? Brave effectively funded this development with BAT. IPFS they kept funding this with Filecoin. The rest, none, right? And Tor, yeah, Tor is being funded partly by cryptocurrency. I actually spent some time with the woman that's leading the Tor Foundation, and she told me that less than 10% of their capital is actually coming from donations in cryptocurrency.
You're missing two, Warpcast and Pixelfed, very nice projects. Very nice.
That's right, I think, so Warpcast...
Pixelfed is not crypto, but Warpcast is full on.
Correct, but I don't think that they are above the 50,000 monthly active users, which I
know.
Yeah. So I think that's the point. I think there's a lot of good stuff, right? There's a lot of interesting stuff coming, and this is we're missing this here. Okay, so there's a lot more good stuff coming. For instance, there's Fileverse, there's DarkFi, there's a lot of interesting things coming, but I didn't put them here, because they haven't yet proven that impact at scale, and then. Additionally, I thought that I should call them out, but the point I was trying to make here is that there are technologies that are proven, there are technologies that are coming, and I think fundamentally they need your support, right? That's where we are. I think this is the moment to actually, think twice. If you have a choice about using any of those things versus the convenient, comfortable, great UI product, think twice, because, the shit has hit the fan. We are here. It's not like what we're thinking about 2015. And I believe that, we need to be contributing. And you can contribute, of course, with your data. You can contribute with your feedback. You can contribute to your code. But, if you really believe in that stuff, it would be awesome if you actually also look at this part, which is the unsexy part of crypto. I know that they don't have tokens. They're probably not going to make you rich, right? But there's maybe something more important at stake. So that's on the world. What about the stuff that we've been doing at RadWorks? I mentioned at the beginning that I'm a founder of a project called Radicle, the ecosystem we call RadWorks. We started this whole thing in 2018 simply because we also saw this whole thing coming. We are engineers, and our thesis was very simple at the time. So we basically looked at our world and both of the founders, basically, we build our careers in open source software. We got educated in open source software. We paid our bills in open source software. Like, basically, open source software has been the thing that made our careers possible, right? And when we looked at things at 2018, we basically saw a lot of those things that do happen today, like this desire for fragmentation of the internet. And then we realized that this thing will definitely spill over towards open source software. And open source software is, in my opinion, one of the digital treasures of humanity. It's like this unique thing that I don't think that there is anything else like that. So we decided to basically do something about this. And we looked at the open source space and we identified two problems. The one problem that we saw, that is the problem that Radicle is solving, is that we thought that open source software doesn't have a stable home. And I know that GitHub is a fantastic product, yes, but GitHub is owned by an American corporation. GitHub is centralized, you're not in control there. And most importantly, with GitHub, the whole idea of openness, the open of open source software, doesn't apply to people from Syria, Doesn't apply to people from Iran. Have you all thought about, are you cool with that? Doesn't apply to, I think, people in Russia now as well, right? So there is this idea of open source software. We thought that something there is fragile, and we decided to do something about it. What came out of this is a project that is called Radicle. This is fully functioning and stable today. We had our 1.0 moment in September. There are more than 2,500 projects that are being hosted in there, and they're growing around 15% month over month. There's a lot of activity. The protocol, after many years of development and many challenges, to be fully transparent, is now fully usable and reliable. We have a lot of exciting things in the works, so definitely check it out, radicle.xyz. The major thing to think about is that in the code collaboration world, you have three choices. The one choice is to use a centralized service like GitHub, GitLab, Codeberg even, right, where someone else is running a node for you, and then you don't own your identity, you don't own your data, and then in many ways you actually are locked in there. So that's one option. The second option is basically to run your own instance, right? And GitLab became popular specifically with this optionality. And then there's another project called Gitea there, and there's a third project called Forge Joe. And the interesting thing about that one is that you can think of this as federations, right? When you run your own instance, the trade-off that you have here is that you can run your own instance, but you're completely disconnected from the rest of the world. It's the classic problem for the engineers in the room between federations and peer-to-peer systems. You don't have the connectedness between all of those instances. And that's effectively where Radicle is coming into play. Radicle is truly peer-to-peer, is based on cryptographic principles out of the box, and then it's the only privacy-preserving and censorship-resistant Forge network for code collaboration. So we're very proud for this work. It's usable. Please go use it. That's the one thing that's coming out of our ecosystem. The second thing that's coming out of our ecosystem is trying to address the second problem that we identified. And how much time do I have? Do I have any?
Yes.
How much?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay.
Question.
Yes, I can do 2 minutes here, and then we can go into questions. So the second product that's coming out of our ecosystem that is also fully functioning, it's production ready, and it's now being used by the Ethereum Foundation, Protocol Labs, ENS, like some of the bigger teams in crypto, is a product that's called Drips. So Drips what it's trying to do is trying to provide an alternative model for funding open source software, which is the second problem we identified. One, home for open source software. Second, how do you reward open source software? So what Drips does is quite simple, but also quite effective. The way it works is that funders create these lists that you can see on the left. This is a real example from ENS. These lists usually have a title. In this case is ENS Ecosystem Term 5 Grant. And then these lists can contain different projects. They can contain Ethereum addresses, ENS names, or they can even contain repos, right? And if you're interested, I can tell you how that aspect works. And then, what you do is you can create those lists. You select the projects that you're interested in rewarding. You can specify those percentages, as you can see, and there's a very flexible logic with regards to that. And then you have the possibility to actually start driving capital in there, either as a one-off payment or as a continuous payment. So it's kind of like a money router, right? But money doesn't need to flow per se. You just put it on chain. It's a little bit like a web of trust. I think Martin was describing it, the circles web of trust before. This is a different form of web of trust where effectively you say that like, if money comes to me, I'm gonna redistribute it based on some logic, right? And in that particular case is the logic that you see here. And then what we do after there's some capital flowing in the system, then we go to some of these projects and we tell them like, hey, Ethers, there's money coming for you. What if you actually keep playing this redistribution game, right? And that's what you see on the right here. And then in this specific case, Ethers actually, everything that's coming in, they're keeping 60% for their maintainers and then they're passing 40% to their own dependencies. So it's effectively an economic web that is based on some splitting logic. And that is creating a graph, and that graph now contains more than 500 really well-known open source projects that are playing this redistribution game. There's a lot of different things that are happening within Drips. I mentioned that we've been working with ENS, we've been working with the Ethereum Foundation. Vitalik Buterin came with a new mechanism that he calls deep funding. I don't know if you've seen that thing. So this is happening within Drips. We can talk about this maybe after because I don't have a lot of time. We also have been working with Protocol Labs. Protocol Labs is having an initiative that is funding retroactively open source projects within their ecosystems. They've been doing these distributions with Drips again, so this is something that's happening within the Drips platform. So it's very flexible. It's a flexible way to program value flows towards builders, but then comes with this really nice redistribution logic, so you amplify your impact effectively. If you choose 10 projects, it's very likely that 30 or 40 might receive some funds. That's that. This is all live. Again, yeah, I wish I could have done a demo, but you can go to drips.network and check it out. That's mostly it from me. Oh, maybe last thing. Oh, that's important. Yeah, last thing, actually, recently we've been working with an organization that's called Web3 Privacy Now. This is one of the teams that have been really pushing, the right side of the Ethereum values, in my opinion. Recently, they created a campaign with us. You can access it on drips.network/privacyproof24. Many of these projects that I showed you on what I call the freedom stack, they are in there. All the funds raised will be going towards them. So, if you have a bit of extra money, support them if you value their work. That's that. Oh, and then a closing thought. A closing thought is bringing everything together. I seriously think that what's happening in Europe is scary, but I also wanted to say that I also think that this is the moment to push for a sovereign internet here. What's happening here is that you probably saw last week there was this big infrastructure bill, defense and infrastructure, $1 trillion will now be going towards the German economy, right? And a big chunk of that will go towards the decoupling of the German economy from American cloud players, effectively, right? And what's my fear is that's going to happen is that you're going to have worse European versions of those, American cloud providers, basically patching some weird solutions and then, charging a premium, basically again, like really mediocre solutions that do not respect user freedoms. And the one thing I want to close with is to tell you that, like, hey, I seriously think that there is an opportunity. If you care about that stuff, this is the moment to push locally for actually, instead of building the national European internet, what if we actually consider building an internet that is, built in sovereign values, in true neutral values that I described before. That's it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to stop here.